Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about recent important news. With us today, not for the first time in a long time, Patrick Levasseur, Chief Operating Officer at HPQ Silicon Resources, soon to be CEO and President over at Beauce Gold Fields, which is what we're going to be talking about today. HPQ, in the meantime, trades on the stock symbol HPQ on the venture exchange. Typically, most investors know that Bernard's on the show where we're discussing the company's plans for vertical integration into solar-grade silicon metal production. But the big news today is the company received a conditional approval for listing on the TSX Venture Exchange that it's Beauce Gold Fields wholly owned subsidiary. It's a wholly owned subsidiary into which HPQ's gold assets were transferred, basically a spin out. It's still subject to TSX Venture approval, but it's pretty much there. BGF is going to be listed as a new public company, which means a dividend for current HPQ investors. Now, for those of you who don't know about Beauce Gold Fields, it's 100% owned by HPQ. It's located in a unique, historically prolific gold property in the Beauce region of Southern Quebec. It hosts numerous, or has hosted numerous historical gold mines that were active for 100 years from the 1860s to the 1960s. So results to date tell the company that they've got close proximity to a bedrock source of gold. Here to talk about that is Patrick. Welcome back.
Thank you, George.
Hey, so this is, before we go into some of the details about the project, this is great news for HPQ investors. What are they getting in addition to a dividend? What are they getting in terms of a great company?
Well, basically, I mean, it's as we announced yesterday, I mean, we got conditional approval, which is a big deal, and it as long shareholders have been following us. It's been a long road. It's a very complex process and with a lot of details. But finally, what this means that basically, the exchange is satisfied that we provided everything that has to be provided to say to go ahead. Now, when they say there's conditional, the conditions is basically, the listing applications, just last minute documentation to put in, and of course the concurrent private placement. So what HPQ shareholders are getting, basically, we call it spin out, but really said, the market has been giving basically zero value to our gold property, and by spinning it out into a newly public company, we're creating value. We're creating a new asset. And, HPQ shareholders are getting that for free. And it's an asset which I strongly believe, can grow.
Well, let's talk about that asset. And I'm going to quote you here from the press release where you say, the Beauce is Canada's last underexplored historical placer mining camp. We're going to ask you about that. It's similar to the white gold projects in the Yukon or the Caribou District in BC. Both of those were placer gold mining camps that recently had major gold discoveries, and you believe you've narrowed the search and exploring for a hard rock gold deposit. So first, let's talk about the historical nature of this. This isn't some green environment here, or some green field here where you're just hoping to pop some drills in and see what you get. Tell us about the historical results of this project that Beauce has had.
Well, it's a little bit of history here, Canadian mining history. The Beauce region was the site of Canada's first gold rush, and then soon after that, you had the Klondike and what happened in BC, and and for a period of like around 1860s to about in the 1920s, it's been continuously mined. We have no idea how much gold came out, but just by the size of the mining operations that was happening there, it was very significant. Some of the companies that were mining there were public companies trading in New York, and in the equivalent today, I mean, we're talking about tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars worth of manpower and equipment and investment went into basically totally transform the land to get the gold out. But here's the thing. All this was always placer mining. I mean, they were, the place is famous for nuggets coming out of the ground, which were the size of potatoes. Wow. But nobody has ever asked the question. Not that it hasn't been asked, but it's just the economic interest has always been to mine the placer deposit because it's relatively readily available, and there's still the placer channel there.
And what are you basically doing? Just scooping out and looking for nuggets? Just scooping out, looking for nuggets?
Exactly. That's pretty much what's going on, at different scales, but it's always been that. So even work that was done in the 80s or the mining operation in the 1960s, again, it was always focused on the placer. The economic interest was always on the placer. But now there's something new that's happening, is that much like, as I mentioned, basically what happened in the Yukon, the Klondike, or in the Caribou with Bakerville, is that people started asking the question, well, where did this gold come from? The placer gold basically is gold that's already been liberated and perhaps traveled, perhaps not, but at least the nuggets have been liberated from its hard rock source. Now, the hard rock source, also known as sometimes the mother lode, should be there somewhere. And the mission of Beauce, so it's the first time Beauce Gold Field, it's the first time in all these years that we have the land package, okay, that covers pretty much the whole valley of the Gilbert River, of where all the gold was mined. So, we believe if there is a source, it's somewhere within that valley or proximity. So it's the first time that we were able to assemble all the claims in some large enough land package and put it all into one vehicle, Beauce Gold Field, and bring it public, where the number one interest will be to find that source.
Now, you talk about the white gold projects in the Yukon or the Caribou district that were in the same situation and recently had major gold discovery. So is it accurate to say that we use the same kind of detective techniques to find, the hard rock gold deposit?
Yeah, great question, George. Exactly. I mean, it's a question of applying, modern geology, using all the modern tools in exploration and geology, and applying basically, methodic scientific method in chasing down the clues to try to find that source. We've already have, maybe some of them, if you people want to download our presentation, I talk about the 6 reasons why to look for a gold deposit, and each of these reasons basically gives us hints as that there is a source nearby that has to be found. So basically, where did Mother Nature put this? And that's where the game is. It's where did Mother Nature put this hard rock source? So we have, with our own exploration, as some of you know, HPQ used to be Eurogold. So when we were Eurogold, we did do some work. We did do some sonic drilling, which is not hard rock drilling. It's just drilling into the overburden with maybe a meter or two of hard rock. And for that was to try to look at the gold nuggets. Look at the gold nuggets, its shape, where it's from. The sonic drilling basically is that we drilled into the overburden, and basically with that we were able to get out basically cores of some of the clay. And from that, the auriferous till, that's where the gold is. The gold nuggets are all into the first 1 to 2 meters sitting on top of the bedrock in a placer channel, which parallels the Gilbert River anywhere between 15 to 40 meters below of overburden. Right. So basically, we drilled into that overburden to drill into the auriferous till, and from that we took out basically. Then it's a clay it's all gray, it's in yellowish gray, and it has consistency of Play-Doh. And from that we extracted the gold nuggets. And we looked at them, and what we found out is that the gold nuggets, most of them were delicate or pristine. Some of them had crystalline structures, and some of them still even had shear marks of where it showed it was attached to basically a piece of quartz or host rock. What
is the pristine? Are you saying they're still in pristine? What does that tell you? Does that mean they were recently dislodged?
Well, exactly. Pristine. Basically, if this was alluvial gold, which is a big misconception, this is just alluvial gold, it came from far, far away. No. It means that gold nugget or that gold grain didn't travel or barely travel. It was simply liberated, maybe even from institute, from where it was. The surrounding rock got heavily weathered around it. And it might have traveled, it might just be sitting there. That's what happened.
But you have the benefit of the white gold project in the Yukon and the Caribou. So this is the kind of same thing that happened there? Was this the same methodology there?
Well, methodology, what they all have in common is that, you know, just like the Beauce and just like the Caribou or just like the Klondike, all these were first discovered and they all have their gold rushes as placer gold. I mean, either gold was mined from the river or from the glacial till, or, you know, placer gold that's been, and it's either nuggets, grains, and that. And then they all went through a period which, you know, for some, like basically the Klondike, 100 years, nothing much happening except basically mom and pop operations like we see on the TV show, you know, Yukon Gold and that. But what they all have in common, basically the Caribou with Bakerville, for example, or white gold in the Klondike near Dawson, they made a discovery. They made a hard rock discovery that could explain where some of that placer gold came from. And everything went bananas from there. These companies took off. You know, look at white gold. White gold sold their deposit to Goldcorp. Nico Eagles and Kinross took a participation, and dozens of juniors just went in, and there's probably been like over $1 billion of exploration money that just went to a small little area. And they're starting to make great discoveries. You know, it's just that, you know, the areas are just simply overlooked. Now, of those, the Beauce is the last one available, and we have it into one vehicle.
Does the gold industry now know, and I know investors don't know about that yet. That's why Beauce is being spun out, you know, into its own company. Does the gold market know about this yet, as far as the industry players go, and you know, executives and then financiers, or is this the idea that when Beauce starts trading, at that point you can start to boast, pardon the pun, but you start to boast about, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, basically now, once we're public, it's to tell the world of what's happening here. You know,
well, devil's advocate. Why did work stop at Beauce after so many decades and decades of, you know, you're talking about companies on New York Stock Exchange and probably millions and tens of millions of dollars of gold was extracted? Why did it end? You know, why are we lucky enough to have that? I'm playing devil's advocate there because there might be some people at home probably wondering.
No, there's many reasons. Like, you know, or bringing it down to more like a Quebec provincials that I get asked the question says, or the big question is, you know, the big gold region in Quebec is Val d'Or, Abitibi Val d'Or. You know, Val d'Or has been, you know, there's been mines there for almost 100 years.
Sure.
And some of these mines, you know, have been in operation almost 3 generations. How come the Beauce didn't become a Val d'Or? Well, it's a circumstance of history mostly, is that when there was all this gold mining going on, gold rush, the descendants, you know, Quebec, 200 something years ago, Quebec used to have, before the English invaded, Quebec had a seigneurial system, basically. And where you had basically this equivalent to what was happening in Europe with the lords. You had a lord, you had land, you owned all the land, people worked on the land.
Sure.
So same thing. And then, well, you know, in the early 1800s, that system was abolished. However, in that area, the descendants, even though it was 3 generations later, the descendants of the seigneur, or the lord of that time, the Deliri family, claim that they've always had the gold rights, or mineral rights, the metals rights. And that place has been mined for, you know, large companies have been there, the farmers own the land. So that became a big court case. And this court case is famous in law because it was from this court case that the modern so this was settled by saying, you know what, the government says from now on, nobody owns the gold, nobody owns silver, copper, it's the state that owns it, the province. So North American modern staking or mining rights came from that court case right there. So everybody adopted the same thing. Basically, the state owns the land. However, here's the odd thing happened about this. So while the government was able to take control of all the mineral assets and license it out for exploration or exploitation, in southern Quebec, there was a status quo. In other words, landowners had the rights to gold and silver and other metals in southern Quebec up until 1985. So it basically killed exploration. That's why the only thing that happened was in 1960 was that the Beauce Placer operation, because they made a deal with a guy that owned the land already. So so fast forward after that, what happens after that? Well, you're in the 80s, 90s comes around, and then it's the .com and no interest. And not only that is that when the staking
gold price plummeted.
Oh, yeah, all kinds of factors. But here's the biggest factor, though, of why since maybe 1990 to now, nothing much happened. It's because nobody was able, the ownership of the claims was dispersed between many people. FanCamp owned some, Eurogold, we had a small plot, a lot of individuals. So all had to be brought together. Now, another issue came up recently. This affects everybody in Quebec, especially, is that you need social acceptability for a project to go ahead. And in the Beauce, what's particular in the Beauce is that, well, over time, it's an rural area, and it's a well-developed area. So most of the land, besides the real estate that Beauce Gold Fields owns, most of the land, of course, we have neighbors, you know.
Also, a lot of residential, a lot of development.
Residential, yeah. Even though it's rural, it's residential. There's a town nearby in that. So we had to have written permission to do our exploration. And you know what? We have 100% acceptance. Nice. Everybody signed on. It's great. You know, the people there have been great. You know, they're just like us. They're curious. They want to know. I mean, the gold is part of their heritage in the town of Saint-Simon-des-Mines. You know,
they increase the value of their real estate, of their businesses. If
perhaps they all want to know that. They want to know, well, how does this affect my end? So you know, we've been having great cooperation with the people. We keep them informed. So the time is right now to have this, to explore, to properly explore the area, and hopefully make great discoveries. You know, it happened in BC. It happened in Yukon. This could be next. So it's the first time everything came aligned together for the first time to put everything together, put into one vehicle, which is Beauce Gold Field, which will be traded on the venture, and to go out and do some great work and hopefully some great discoveries.
I know you can't get pinned down to a date, but based on, you know, the conditional listing approval that you received, do you have a ballpark ETA of when you think it'll finally be off and traded on the venture exchange on its own? And I'm not trying to pin you to a date. Don't have a fixed 1 to 2 months, 3 to 4 months.
No, much sooner than that. Basically, as soon as we announced a concurrent private placement. So as soon as that is closed, soon after that we're trading. So so
it's closer. So you're in the
Usually it takes us about a month to get everything together, to get the sub agreements in and that.
Right, so we're in the 1 to 2 month, 30 to 45 days ballpark.
Well, I'm hoping that in November, sometime November, we're trading.
Okay. Well, it's been a long road, and I know how hard it's been for you, Patrick.
Long road, yeah. We did a lot of there was a lot of do-it-yourselves and long road, but in the end, it's worth it. What do we have? Well, look at this. Beauce Gold Field will be a clean vehicle, a very tightly held vehicle. With only if you count the private placement, so far we'd be under 20 million shares outstanding. And a chunk of that is held by HPQ. Another chunk of that is insiders like me, Bernard, and other close people that we know. So the float, it'll be a very tight float, which could give, a nice upside leverage to the stock. That's one advantage. So we're starting off clean. That's the main thing. That's why it was worth the trouble. That's why we didn't do a reverse takeover in another shell, another company. We're starting clean, right. And it's just ready to go. That's what's nice about it.
Well, I'm going to say this. I think I speak on behalf of most of your investors out there. And look, I'm a shareholder at the end of the day because I'm a shareholder of HPQ. So I'm going to be a shareholder of Beauce and getting my pro rata, dividend or whatever you guys call it, distribution. But I think I speak on pretty much behalf of everybody who cares about the company and saying thanks. Congratulations, because Beauce was sitting inside of HPQ. It was getting no value attached to it whatsoever. We barely spoke about it because HPQ is going so strong on the solar grade silicon side that's obviously the push on HPQ, and that's going fantastic. So unlocking Beauce, you took a year. In fact, last August is when the announcement came out. So you're talking about you're at the 14, 15 month range. So 14, you put in 14, 15 months of hard work. It was expensive. It was grueling. This wasn't.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we
Jack box. You weren't just checking off box. So thanks, man. Thanks for doing that, and congratulations for unlocking more value for HPQ investors. And I think we all wish you fantastic success going forward, and seeing if we can create another success just like in the Yukon and Caribou district.
Yeah. That's cool. As I said, it's the last placer. It's the last placer to hard rock project left that hasn't gone public.
Well, on that note, next time we're going to be talking to you, you'll be president CEO of the last one to go public, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot to say because I'm presuming you've started drilling programs. You're going to have that money in, and we'll talk about that the next time around. But
we're going to have lots of fun. Yep.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate that.
Thanks, George.
You've been watching Patrick Levasseur, HPQ Silicon Resources Chief Operating Officer, soon to be President CEO of Beauce Gold Fields when that goes public. In the meantime, HPQ trades on the stocks on the stock symbol HPQ, naturally on the TSX Venture Exchange. For more information about the company, get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or stock symbol, read all about it on the profile pages and get your information. And if you're really interested in Beauce, then you got to watch the story closely because the company is going to be launching their website and all its collateral information to support Beauce, and we're really excited about that. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. If you're watching this just before Thanksgiving in Canada, have a great day. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.